Welcome back to my messy garage. We've been working on this 67 Fastback and working on the rear seat brackets. In the last video I got my rear seat brackets all put in, and I have new of these side panel brackets that I'm working on locating. So over here, I don't know if these are original. One of them's in much better condition than the other. This one's a little chewed up. So regardless, I'm using these as the guide and what I'm using to test fit, because that's what I have. You can see we've got elongated holes up and down on the panel and side to side on the bracket, and it goes something like that. So we've got a lot of adjustability up and down and side to side in this plane. What we don't have is adjustability side to side in this direction. Essentially where it goes here is where it's going to attach to the panel. So it's a little important that I locate it properly here. So what I'm going to do, I've got measurements online and I've got the measurements I took before, but I'm going to put the bottom part of the rear seat in, put the panel where it goes vertically here, and use that as a guideline and see if I can measure back from that. See if I can get these side brackets in exactly where they need to be. Okay, I've got the side panels just kind of put in place. The screws roughly lined up, and just a little spring clamp and a couple of strategic spots to hold it where it goes. The interesting thing that I'm noticing is, well, like so many things that Ford did, there's a ton of variability in where things could go. Maybe you could see at the rear here, we're up against the mounting point, and then I clamped it up here and up at the top the sides here. This is right up against that bracket, so that's good. The upper vent actually goes in between here, so that's not my reference point, but here, these screws line up, and there's a little bit of play in here. But here's the interesting thing. I wish I could get another hand. Well, let's get another clamp. Hang on. Okay, I added another clamp to the bottom here so that this basically lines up with the sheet metal edge, and I'm pretty sure there's a piece of windlace that goes all the way around. Let me see if I can show you this. This is the bottom where the bracket goes. There's a ton of variability here. I can just easily make the argument for like back and forth over 1/2 inch with all the mounting points in place. So before, when I said that there wasn't a lot of play in where this goes side to side, that might not be exactly true. So what I'd seen online for measurements was 7 inches from the inner rocker, sorry about my thumb there, from the inner rocker to the bracket. And this is without any manipulation. More clamps. Okay, 4 clamps, one more in the back here. So still a lot of wiggle room. That makes sure all the mounting points stay put. Let's see where we are without any manipulation. So without bending anything in the panel, we're just about 7 inches on that. I could move it back in quite a bit or even out. So that's at least a little encouraging in that I've got some wiggle room here, and if I'm off by an 1/8 inch, it's not the end of the world, so that's good. Let me get the bracket and see what things look like. Okay, so obviously this bracket is going to go on the other side, but I just want to drop it in place and see how things line up at first. So what I'll probably do, well, no, I take it back. So this little this little tab right here on the bracket, if I have it up against this upper torque box flange there, it looks like, seriously, I need 4 more hands. It looks like that should provide, let's see if I can show you the hole back in there. Best video ever. Anyway, it looks like it should provide enough variability. Gosh, look what happened to that hole. It's super elongated. Not exactly sure why. What might end up happening is once I have the bracket in place, when I go around and I do repairs on these, I know I'm gonna have to do some fiberglass work, especially on the driver side. The passenger side isn't in terrible shape, but a lot of the mounting holes on this side are just, the panel's just chewed up. It needs some help. So that's something we're gonna deal with later if I need to fix some of these holes. But yeah, I'm going with that 7 inches. That's what the measurement said from the sources I have. That's what I measured on my original one, and that's where the panel tells me it needs to go. So, okay, and just for a sanity check, just place the panels in place along with the rear seat. Now, this has a lot of variability on where this sits. So I'm not using it as a reference. This is just a sanity check to make sure there's no interference or anything going on. And what I might even do, I might grab the seat back just to drop in place and make sure that the width, there's no interference with the width between here. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and do that too. Okay, this is interesting. Looking at the passenger side, looks like that 7 inches is going to be ideal. However, looking at the driver side over here, the best place for it to sit, and even when I had the seats in, I think where it sat looked more natural. If I do take a measurement from the rocker, it is closer to 6 3/4, which I'm not really happy about. Hang on, let me see if I can get you a better look at this. So I know I have some variability. I know I have some variability in my rockers, just from old work, presumably. And I can pull this out to make it the same width, that roughly 7 inches. But when I do that, the panel at the back leaves its mounting hole here. So again, I'm not sure if this panel is, it's quite possible this is an original and then the passenger side is a reproduction, just because they don't look to be the same. Yeah, this one has slightly crisper edges, or maybe not even reproduction. Maybe when they replaced a bunch of things on this side, this was one of the things they had to replace. Who knows, man? One way or another, this is going to need some work done to it, some fiberglass work. But for now, I think I tack this bracket in place with what fits best for this. Okay, last thing about test fit before I put my PPE on and you stop hearing me talk. I talked about this last video where it seems like the middle part of this bracket is too long. Let me see if I can show you. Putting it where it needs to go, right about here. There's a pivot point in the middle. So either the front two or the back two parts are touching. And let me show you what I think that's from. It's gonna be hard to tell, but the light spot here and the shadow here, this floor pan is raised a little differently over here than the one I had. So I think what happened was, since this is original and presumably, or original or not, it was what was on the car, and presumably this hasn't moved when I replaced the transition pan. So I'm thinking these two surfaces are where they were. This is definitely a different shape and subtle. We're not talking about major changes, but it's one stamping for many years. It's possible things are a little different over time. But additionally, this middle piece, I don't know if you can tell that, it's got a nice bump going on there. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this to the vise and just hammer it flat and see how close that gets us. If it's still up a little too far, I'll probably end up just putting a cut somewhere on here just to allow it to come down or up, come closer to the rest of the bracket, so that the front and back can touch, and then just do a line of weld on it. It's pretty funny. I got these so I didn't have to do a bunch of work on the brackets, and here I am doing a bunch of work on the brackets. Okay, after several test fits, I got my magnets in place, put the bracket back up, made sure that it worked with the side panel, and I had cut off this bottom lip of the bracket and got everything lined up, and then slid it back in place and just tacked that bottom lip back up. I didn't get everything perfect, as you can obviously tell, but I did make sure everything was closed up, and I did also just kind of run a line of tack welds on the back there just to make sure it's penetrated on both sides. And I'm not going to bother cleaning up in this corner. It's going to be sitting like this in there. So unless you have this panel off and look all the way on the back side, you're never going to see them. And besides, I mean, if you've seen my welding before, that's actually pretty good. I mean, it's not going to win any awards, but yeah, okay, you know, doing all right. So I'm going to go ahead and throw some weld through primer on the mounting surfaces. I put holes at the back and here, probably overkill, just holding a piece of fiberglass panel. And I think the book calls for just welding on the edges, but that's fine. We'll just plug weld in those 4 holes. And then at the front here, I'll just do along the seam. That should be plenty enough to hold this where it needs to go. Okay, yesterday I got the bracket all mounted up here. You can see the seam down there where I cut and spliced the bracket together. It's nice and solid, and you know, you can see a little bit of the welds that I kind of got flat there, but I'm not worried about getting them perfect. And a little stitch welding on this front piece. I haven't ground these down, and I don't think I will. The 2 plug welds and the 2 plug welds. And that one's got a little bit of a raised area, but not too bad. And then I kind of went along the edge and just did a little stitch welding as well. As I think you need to say after installing something like that, you need to shake it and then go, that ain't going anywhere. So that's the case. This is in there pretty solid. I'm pretty happy with that. And now gonna move on to the driver's side, and of course, everyone's favorite, grinding welds. And it's going to be, I think, mostly rinse and repeat on the driver's side. I'm gonna go ahead and clean up all the old welds, all the welds getting the floor to the transition pan and frame rail and everything. Make sure that's all nice and flat, and position the new bracket where it goes. I might even put use my laser level and line up and just double check my measurements from the center line of the car out to the bracket as opposed to the rocker, since I know there's variability on these rockers, and go from there. Okay, let me show you what I'm looking at here. I went ahead and put up my laser level, aligned it with the rear of the car. Probably can't see that, but that gives me, I did this before, but that gives me kind of a datum line all the way across, and I marked it with Sharpie here and here on the floor, just so I can measure from the center line to that bracket and that bracket. What I did was I put the driver's side bracket at the same distance from that center line as the passenger side, just to see, get a different reference besides the rockers, because we know that there's potential variance there. So I lined it up, measured it from the rocker out, and got that same 7 inches, put the panel back up, and I was very careful to align things the way they needed to be. Sorry, my hand's shaking, I've been grinding. And clamped at every clamp point. And underneath here, I have the bracket. You can see the bottom of it peeking out there and there. So I have the bracket behind there, held up with the magnets, and pushed it to where it needed to go. And it did slide a little bit. And when I measure, I'm getting that same roughly 6 3/4. So I'm going to go ahead and line it up to where, well, I guess I should also say I can pull this panel out a little bit. You know, I might just do that. We're going to line it up to 7 inches because you can see there's plenty of wiggle room there. So let me see if I can slide it a little bit. Yeah, that should work just fine. You can see the holes. 1, 2, 3. That one's a little bit off, but no biggie. So that's what I'll do. I'll put it at 7 inches. It's going to work with the panel how it is, and it lines up with all the measurements, and it will be even from the center line and the rockers, so no biggie there. So yeah, let me go ahead and clean up the spots. I'm going to take this panel off and show you, but I think I can get away without cutting off this this bottom flanger on this one. It's a little bit raised in the middle, but I think just a couple of gentle taps with a hammer to level things out should do nicely. All right. I've got both brackets up and both panels test fit in, just my same clamps along the edges. And it's going to be tough to show you, but I'm happy. All of these holes, even the weird elongated one, all of the holes line up with the space behind. So I'm going to call that a win right there. Yeah, we've talked about the variability where these panels can sit and shift around. So I'm pretty happy with where they landed. And down the road, if I need to move some brackets or change some holes, especially if I do things with this panel, not a problem. We can get that done. I think the next step, I'm going to see, I've got a few more hours left this weekend. Let me see if I can, at a minimum, locate where the last 2 brackets on this transition pan go. Some astute viewers might notice that I'm starting to change the name of the channel and adding the word messy in there. I don't want people walking away with the impression that this is a professional garage, if that was ever the impression. But I'm getting some really good questions about my approach to things, and I just want people to have the understanding that I'm just a guy in my garage trying to figure it out as I go along. So we're going towards Evan's Messy Garage, so it doesn't sound like some professional shop or anything like that, if anyone was confused. Okay, I think that's going to wrap it up for this weekend. I was going to look into locating these brackets and kind of exactly where they go. Problem is, first off, I'm an idiot. I didn't mark where they were or take a measurement before I took them off of the original transition pan. So it's kind of I can get them left to right, but how far up they go, I'll get into that next video. But I was trying to use the fold down seat itself to figure that out, and it was not working out so hot. But at any rate, here's the completed brackets all welded in. I'm very happy with how they work. They look good. They line up well. The side panels look great. Okay, if you're still with me, thank you so much for watching. Hopefully coming up soon, we're going to wrap up the seat brackets and then I'll be able to install everything at the back end here.